Breaking news. Viking Nation, the storm gathering inside U.S. Bank Stadium is about to shake the entire NFC North to its core. There's a versatile warrior who's about to claim a position nobody saw coming, transforming the trenches in ways that could save this season. There's a linebacker whose inconsistency has Brian Flores on edge, but growth is brewing beneath the surface. There's a defensive tackle drowning in double teams, yet the coaching staff sees opportunity where others see struggle. There's a returning general who's been waiting in the shadows, ready to unleash chaos on opposing offenses. And there's a rookie who defied doctor's orders, played through pain, and might just embody the warrior spirit this franchise was built on. 5 revelations, 5 game changers, 5 moments that could decide whether the Vikings rise or fall in the brutal gauntlet ahead. Each story cuts deeper than the last. Each name carries the weight of a season on the brink. The first bombshell is about to land, and Viking Nation, you're not ready for the chaos it brings. If you bleed purple and gold harder than Packers fans bleed jealousy, drop that like right now, because this ride is about to get wild. But hold on, before we dive into the madness, let me be clear. This isn't just news, this is war. War on the trenches, war in the locker room, war against the doubters who think this team can't survive the injury apocalypse that's been tearing through the roster. The offensive line has been gutted, the defense has been tested, and every single one of these 5 stories represents a fork in the road. So buckle up, stay locked in, and get ready for the first revelation that's about to flip the entire offensive line on its head. The first shock begins with a player who's done something almost no one in the NFL has ever accomplished. This warrior has played every single position on the offensive line, moving from tackle to guard to tackle again, and now, in the most desperate hour, he's being asked to do something he's never done in a real game before. The coaches are whispering that this might be his best position yet. Who is this shapeshifter? Stay with me, because the name I'm about to drop will make every Vikings fan lean forward and ask, can he really pull this off? The player is Blake Brandle, and he's about to become the Minnesota Vikings starting center, potentially for the long haul. That's right, the same Blake Brandle who was drafted as a tackle out of Oregon State back in 2020. The same Blake Brandle who spent last season as the starting left guard, before being replaced on draft day by first-round pick Donovan Jackson, without even a chance to compete. But here's the twist. In Week 5 against the Cleveland Browns in London, with both Ryan Kelly and Michael Juergens unavailable, Brandle stepped into the center position for the very first time in his professional career. And he didn't just survive, he thrived. 6 to 5 snaps, every single one of them clean, commanding, surgical. And now, offensive coordinator Wes Phillips has dropped a bombshell that should have every fan circling this Sunday's game on their calendar. Phillips said, the way Blake handled that game, I think we could be looking at a situation where this may be his best position out of all 5 spots on the offensive line. Let that sink in. This isn't a desperate band-aid. This is a revelation, a discovery. Now, why does this matter so much? Because Ryan Kelly, the team's starting center, is on injured reserve with his 2nd concussion of the season and his 5th documented concussion overall. His future in football is legitimately uncertain, and even when he's eligible to return in 3 games, there's no guarantee he'll ever suit up again. The Vikings need a center they can trust, and Brandle, with his 6 years of experience, his work ethic, his willingness to do whatever the team needs, might just be that guy. Phillips elaborated further, explaining that Brandle has been working at center throughout the offseason because the Vikings always prepare their interior backups to be flexible. Think about Brandle's journey for a second. This is a guy who has played 22 snaps at left tackle this year, 80 snaps at left guard, and 65 at center. In his career, he's also logged significant time at right guard and served as a 6th defensive lineman in heavy packages. That's all 5 positions. And now he's potentially found his home in the most important spot of all. Critics will point to his inconsistent performance at left guard last season, especially after Christian Darrisaw went down with a devastating knee injury. But here's the thing, Brandle never sulked, never complained, never checked out. He stayed engaged. He waited for his opportunity, and when it came, he seized it with both hands. So what happens next? Michael Juergens returned to practice on Monday, and he's the traditional backup center. But with Brandle playing so well, do the Vikings really want to make a change? These are the questions that will define the offensive line for the rest of the season. And here's the brutal truth. If Brandle can hold down the center position at a high level, It gives the Vikings the kind of depth and versatility they desperately need. Here's my question for you, Viking Nation. Do you believe Blake Brandle has finally found his calling? Do you trust him to anchor this offensive line through the gauntlet of NFC powerhouses? Waiting in the weeks ahead, drop your answers in the comments. And if you believe in second chances, if you believe in guys who grind and wait for their moment, then smash that subscribe button right now, because Blake Brandle's story is just getting started. And just when you thought the offensive line drama was enough to process, the next revelation cuts even deeper. Stay locked in, because the second story takes us to the defensive side of the ball, where a young linebacker is fighting for his career, battling inconsistency, and trying to prove that he belongs. The linebacker in question is Ivan Pace Jr., and his season has been a roller coaster of jaw-dropping plays and gut-wrenching mistakes. Without his running mate Blake Cashman, who's been sidelined since week 1 with a hamstring injury, Pace has been asked to shoulder a burden that's proven too heavy, and the numbers? Brutal. The Vikings have allowed 135.5 rushing yards per game over the last 4 contests, and Pace himself ranks 55th out of 60 to linebackers in Pro Football Focus grading among players with at least 200 snaps. He's tied for the most missed tackles among linebackers in the entire NFL with 10. That's not just inconsistency, that's a crisis. But here's where the story gets interesting, where Brian Flores steps in and offers a perspective that should give every fan hope. Flores said this about Pace: "Ivan has done a lot of good things. I think he's played with physicality and speed. I think his communication has been good, and he's improved in those different areas over the 3 years. There are some plays he wants back, like every other player." Notice the keywords: physicality, speed, communication, improvement. Flores isn't throwing Pace under the bus, he's building him up. So what's holding Pace back? The biggest issue is lateral movement, or the lack thereof. Pace is a north-south missile, a player who excels at shooting gaps, blitzing the quarterback, and attacking downhill. But when he's asked to move side to side, to cover running backs in space, the wheels come off. The Los Angeles Rams exposed this weakness last year when Kyron Williams ran a Texas route out of the backfield and left Pace in the dust for a touchdown. But here's the thing Viking Nation needs to understand. Pace is only in his 3rd year. He's an undrafted free agent who was never supposed to be a full-time starter, and he's been asked to carry a load that should be split between him and Cashman. The fact that Flores still sees growth is a testament to Pace's work ethic. And with Cashman set to return this week, Pace will finally have his partner back. Here's the million-dollar question. Can Ivan Pace Jr. fix his lateral movement issues and become a reliable every-down linebacker? Or is he destined to be a situational player? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you think Pace deserves more time to develop, hit that like button right now. Subscribe if you want to see how this linebacker battle plays out. But that's not the only fire burning inside this franchise, because the next headline is even more explosive. Stay with me, because what comes next involves one of the highest paid defensive tackles in the entire NFL, getting destroyed by double teams, and Brian Flores comparing him to Justin Jefferson. The defensive tackle in question is Javon Hargrave, and the Vikings signed him to a massive contract in free agency to be the interior force that would collapse pockets and stuff the run. And in terms of pass rushing, Hargrave has delivered 13 pressures and 2 sacks through 5 games on just 9 of 5 pass rush snaps. Is legitimate production? But here's the problem. Hargrave is getting obliterated on double teams, especially in run defense. His run defense grade on Pro Football Focus is a dismal 43.5, a catastrophic drop from what Harrison Phillips provided last season. Brian Flores addressed this issue head-on, comparing Hargrave receiving double teams to Justin Jefferson getting bracketed coverage. He's a good player, so he gets a lot of attention, Flores said, and I think as a whole, defensively, when we see that, how do we use that to our advantage? On the surface, that logic makes sense. If Hargrave is eating double teams, then other players should be feasting, and to some extent, that's happened, with Yalen Redmond having an exceptional season. But here's the brutal reality. Hargrave isn't just getting double, he's getting demolished. The Vikings are 25th in the NFL in rushing EPA allowed per game. So, what's the solution? The Vikings have the options. They can continue to use Hargrave as a defensive tackle who shoots gaps and rushes the passer, accepting that he'll be a liability in run defense. Or they can reduce his snaps and save him for obvious passing situations. The latter seems to be the direction they're heading, as Hargrave played just 40 snaps against Pittsburgh and 33 against Cleveland. So Viking Nation, here's what I need to know. Do you think the Vikings made a mistake by trading Harrison Phillips and forcing Javon Hargrave into a nose tackle role? Drop your take in the comments. And if you think the Vikings need to pivot, smash that like button. But listen closely, because the next chapter is where hope returns, where the cavalry arrives. Stay with me, because the fourth story might just be the most important one of all. The returning warrior is Blake Cashman. His comeback couldn't come at a better time. The linebacker, who had a Pro Bowl caliber season in 2024, has been sidelined since week 1 with a hamstring strain. For long weeks on injured reserve, for weeks of watching his defense struggle without him. And now, finally, the wait is over. Kevin O'Connell opened Cashman's 21-day practice window on Monday, and the early indications are that he'll be ready to suit up this Sunday. Against the Philadelphia Eagles, O'Connell's enthusiasm was palpable. Very excited to get him back, O'Connell said. We have just seen since we got Blake. When he's out there, and we're playing the type of defense we're accustomed to seeing. Blake's got a lot to do with it. That's a genuine acknowledgement that Cashman is the engine that makes Flores' defense run. Last season, among 64 linebackers who played at least 500 snaps, Cashman ranked 14th in Pro Football Focus grading. He finished 4th among all off-ball linebackers with 28 quarterback pressures. Cashman himself spoke to reporters, saying, "I'm feeling great. The last 4 weeks, I had to be patient, rehab the leg. But when you get back out on the grass with your brothers, you start to feel like yourself again." And Brian Flores didn't hold back in his praise either. Cash is a big part of our defense. He's a big part of what we do in terms of communication, athleticism, football acumen, getting other players in the right spots, and leadership. Now here's the reality check. The Vikings aren't going to rush Cashman back if he's not 100% ready. But all signs point to Cashman being good to go, and his return couldn't be more timely. The Eagles are rolling into US Bank Stadium with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, a dual-threat nightmare that requires elite linebacker play to contain. So Viking Nation, let me ask you this. How big of a difference do you think Blake Cashman's return will make? Drop your predictions in the comments. And if you're fired up about Cashman coming back, smash that like button right now. Subscribe to track how Cashman performs in his first game back. And if you think that was wow, the final story might just redefine everything you thought you knew about toughness. Stay locked in, because the 5th revelation involves a first-round rookie who was told not to play, who defied doctor's orders. The rookie in question is Donovan Jackson, the left guard from Ohio State, who the Vikings selected in the first round. And in week 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals, he proved his toughness in the most dramatic way possible. Before the game, Jackson injured his wrist, and the medical staff informed him that it was a significant injury, one that would require surgery. But they told him that if he braced it up, he could delay the surgery for at least another week. And Jackson, being the warrior that he is, heard another week and immediately said, "Oh, so I can play the game?" The doctors responded, "Well, we don't recommend it." And Jackson fired back, "No, you said another week. I'll be fine." And he did play. He suited up, braced his wrist, and logged 28 pass-blocking snaps, allowing just 1 quarterback pressure. And then, as soon as the final whistle blew, Jackson was on a plane to Los Angeles, where he underwent wrist surgery the very next morning. He missed the next 2 games, but this week, Jackson returned to practice, and all indications are that he could be available for Sunday's showdown against the Eagles. Jackson spoke to reporters on Monday. "Couldn't get any worse. That was my mindset. I was told that, yeah, it was a significant injury in terms of wrists, but they said, well, if you brace it up, you won't have to get surgery at least for like another week." So I was like, "Oh, so I can play the game?" They're like, "Well, we don't recommend it." I was like, "No, you said another week. I'll be fine." So played the game, did what I could to the best of my abilities, and then I was on a plane the same night. But here's what makes Jackson's story even more incredible. This isn't the first time he's sacrificed for the good of the team. Last season at Ohio State, Jackson volunteered to move to left tackle after an injury, knowing it would hurt his draft stock. He played out of position for the remainder of the season, helped Ohio State win a national championship, and proved that his commitment to winning is greater than his commitment to personal glory. And now, as Jackson prepares to return from wrist surgery, the question becomes, will he be ready for the Eagles? Jackson himself seems confident, saying, "We're going to prepare accordingly. Although it's fixed, I still need to take precautions. As long as I have some mobility in the wrist and also in the fingers, I'll be fine." So here's the final question for Viking Nation. Do you believe Donovan Jackson is the long-term answer at left guard? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you respect Jackson for playing through that injury, smash that like button right now. Subscribe if you want to follow Jackson's development, because this kid is only 22 years old. And listen closely, because as we wrap this up, one thing becomes crystal clear. The Minnesota Vikings are at a crossroads, a moment where injuries, adversity, and uncertainty are testing the very soul of this franchise. Blake Brandle finding a home at center could stabilize the offensive line for years to come. Ivan Pace Jr. is either on the verge of breaking through or being exposed. Javon Hargrave is either going to adjust or become a cautionary tale. Blake Cashman's return could be the spark that ignites this defense. And Donovan Jackson's toughness could make him a franchise cornerstone. These are the stakes. These are the questions. These are the moments that will define whether the Vikings rise to meet the challenge or crumble under the weight of expectations. So if you believe in this team, drop a comment right now and tell me why. If you think the Vikings are going to shock the world, smash that like button. And if you want to be part of this journey, hit that subscribe button and join Viking Nation, because the storm is just beginning and the best is yet to come. And one more thing before you go. The Eagles are coming to Minneapolis with the confidence of champions. They think they're going to walk into US Bank Stadium and dominate a Vikings team that's been decimated by injuries. But here's what they don't understand. They're walking into a hornet's nest, into a stadium full of fans who've been starving for a signature win. And when Blake Cashman is flying around making tackles, when Blake Brandle is snapping the ball with precision, when Donovan Jackson is pushing defenders backward despite a surgically repaired wrist, the Eagles are going to realize that they made a catastrophic mistake, because this Vikings team is about to show the entire NFL that they're not just surviving, they're thriving. Skol Vikings, and let's make Sunday a day that shakes the entire NFC to its core.